Okay, so ironically, in a week where I've opened up a lot of Platinum Edition action figures, so I've had like two action figures to open per video. This time, I don't have the Platinum Edition of this figure. This is Two-Face DC The Silver Age from Mcfarlane Toys Digital. There's a nice piece of artwork on the back of Two-Face leaping into action. This is a piece of artwork from the style guide with kind of a comic booky background. This is typical that we've seen of these in excuse me in the Silver Age subset of this particular subset. So looks to me like it's probably artwork by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. If it's not him, it's somebody doing a darn good job aping his style, and that could be somebody like Mike Zeck, who does a lot of the artwork for the style guides these days, and he does a good job keeping his artwork consistent with what Garcia Lopez has established since the 80s. And, like Mike Zeck is, of course, a legendary Bronze Age comic book artist. I'd say like on the same level as Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. I think that they're both outstanding artists. So we're lucky to have both of their artwork on the merchandise. But you can see Two Face is wearing his classic comic book look, the bisected suit, which is orange on one side and purple plaid on the other. We'll talk more about that once we open up the figure. But there's not a whole lot else to say about this packaging, is there? So let's go ahead and get on that. So yeah, even though I don't have the Platinum Edition figure, which would be a black and white suit that he's wearing, I do have to compare the Batman Forever Two-Face figure, which shares a lot of parts with this guy. So let's go ahead and get him opened up. And over there, there's the blister with the figure on it. And then we've got the trading card and the NFT certificate, which I don't usually fool with. But I'll go ahead and show that to you in a second. Just so for anybody who's not familiar with it, anybody who hasn't seen any of these videos yet, that's what that looks like, or hasn't opened it up themselves. Bobby Wald says, "Can you imagine how much money Two Face's tailor is pocketing, putting all those materials half and half together?" Yeah, well, he's he's got plenty of money. He's robbing banks and stuff, ripping off mobsters and all that. Yeah, depending on what's who am I going to rob today? Am I going to rob that charity, or I'm going to rob the gangster? Flips the coin. Oh, clean side. I guess I'm robbing the gangster. So that's how you get around that good bad thing. It's a sliding scale, you see. So here's the trading card, same piece of artwork on the back, only it's cropped to be more of a close up of Harvey. There's the back, and it reads Mcfarlane Toys Digital, Two Face, debut Detective Comics, Volume 1, number 66, August 1942. Harvey Dent has led a deeply conflicted life, possessing a split personality that veers between two extremes, good and evil. Dent goes by the name of Two-Face. It is an apt description of his physical appearance, scarred by acid into outwardly becoming the monster he once hid away from the world. Two-Face has become a tragic figure and one of Batman's most unpredictable and dangerous opponents. All right, so that's a pretty good bio. I like that one. That one did a good job of describing the character and his personality and his relationship to Batman, and it's like that's pretty decent. I like that one. So I can be pretty critical of these bios a lot, like, but I try to also, if I read one that I think does a pretty good job, point out that it did a pretty good job. So let's move on to the figure, and we can see that he comes with no accessories whatsoever, which is disappointing because one of the things that I liked about this Two-Face figure is that he came with a bunch of extra hands, and one of my favorite hands, the one that I keep on the figure here, you can see his coin flipping hand, but sadly, No extra hands with this guy. I would have loved to have had an extra coin flipping hand. So he's got the rubber tabs around each of these elbows. Actually, this one's more around the forearm. And remember how I pointed out on that which figure was it that I opened up where I pointed out they actually put like a little space in there where you get the knife in there easily to cut it. Yeah, Two-Face does not have that. This is very snug. It looks like they tried to give him one if you look at where the legs are, but it missed. That is not where the rubber tabs went in. That's just mean. So let's try to get these out without scratching the figure. You know what? I'm just gonna get the one at the torso, which of course is a double rubber tab because kind of appropriate for Two-Face, but whatever. All right, and we just the feet came right out after I did that, so I didn't have to bother. So why don't real quick? I'm gonna go ahead and put this back together so I can toss it in the recycling in a little bit. All right. So as I pointed out, this is pretty much the same exact figure from the neck down. He's got different hands, and this hand might have come with that Two-Face figure also. I don't think this hand did because as you can see, it's sculpted to be a bare hand rather than having a glove. But it is colored in green, as they tend to do with Two-Face. They tend to color in his hand green, even though in the comic book he only got the acid on his face. He didn't get the acid on his hand too, so it didn't go over like the whole, left half of his body. But you can really tell if you didn't know that these two use the same exact body if you look at the lapel, because he's got this more sort of solid lapel, almost like what you might see on a dinner jacket, and it's got the same thing going on over here. But Mcfarlane probably trying to get as much use out of that Two-Face mold as they can. It is an all new head sculpt, which I think is excellent and really captures the flavor of the character from the comic book. He's got a nice bright lime green on the evil side, purple on the evil side, orange on the good side. The same color shoes, which is kind of disappointing. Like if you look at the back here, he's got the same color shoes, but I would have gone the extra mile and given him like say one brown shoe and one black shoe. That's just what I would have done. You can see that his shirt is blue on one side, white on the other, and his tie is that brown on the evil side and lavender on the good side, which you might think it would be the other way around, but I guess he's not about matching. So, and I don't think I noticed this on the previous Two-Face figure, probably because I was distracted by the animal print on the shirt here. But it even looks to me like the shirt has a different texture to it, and I could be mistaken about that. It might be just because like the dark blue paint is giving it a little more shadow and bringing out the detail a little more than the white plastic on the other side. But it looks like to me it's got like kind of a more coarse sort of fabric texture to it. And I suspect, as I mentioned before, I suspect that the arms and legs from this figure at least are reused from the Dark Knight Harvey Dent figure, but I don't have that figure, so I don't know for certain to compare. But I love the head sculpt. For the most part, I think the paint job is really good. I will nitpick and say that in the comic book, as we can see in the illustration here, Harvey is supposed to have gray hair on his evil side, not white hair. So that is actually not accurate. But that's nitpicking. And also, I wish they had made these joints at the wrist a different color. They probably should have matched up with the shirt or with the skin. They probably shouldn't have matched up with the jacket. That was probably not a good choice. So yeah, that's about the most I got to say about the paint job on this one. Oh well, one other thing I wanted to say is that I do wish that they bothered to try to put the plaid pattern on the purple. I think that would have looked a lot better than just plain purple, because like I said in the comic book, he's got that plaid on there. So it would have been nice for him to have the plaid on the suit. And I know that's a complicated thing to ask for, but hell, I remember seeing those Mattel new Batman Adventures figures. The first Batman figures that Mattel put out when they got the DC license back around the turn of the century. Remember, they had those new Batman Adventures 2-packs, and they had a Two-Face figure in that had plaid. Two-Face, who did not have plaid in the cartoon, obviously, because that would have been hell to animate, especially back then. But but they certainly gave it to him in the action figure, and it looked really cool. And if you could do that on like an animated style action figure, like back in like 20 years ago now, I think they probably could have pulled something off with that. And then like they got the animal print on this guy, like the zebra stripes or whatever the hell that's supposed to be. So like, you can see that they can do some complex camo pattern, or that's a camo pattern, but some complex paint patterns these days, but they don't. Bobby Wald says those are some bright colors on the suit. It's like if you watched the Dumb and Dumber movie and pointed out Lloyd's suit and says, that's for me. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But first, I want to give a shout out to Sean Franklin, who says hi, and hi right back to you. Hope you're doing well. And yeah, so here's the thing about Two-Face's suit is like it makes perfect sense for it to be loud on the evil side, because that is the side where like it's his as it noted on the trading card, that's where like his evil side is bubbling to the surface, and he's basically letting it all hang out. So of course he'd be really bright and loud and obnoxious over on this side. Even Joel Schumacher understood that. So, but on the other side, then he's got this bright orange suit that looks like he's either going deer hunting or picking up litter on the side of the road or something like that. And here's the thing. Yes, I know he did, as we saw, have an orange suit on the good half in the original comic books. He has since the 1940s. And usually that's what he's depicted as wearing in the comic books, even to this day. Sometimes they do the animated series thing where they put him in a black and white suit, which I really like that. And sometimes they'll do something I've seen on occasion where they do something a little more like Batman Forever, where he's got the animal print, or, John Romita Jr. Had an interesting design of Two-Face where it was black on one side and red on the other. And I believe just had solid black pants. It was just the jacket and the shirt and tie that were bisected. But I thought that looked pretty sharp, actually. I have a Lego minifigure of that, and I think I have a DC Universe, like a Mattel DC Universe. Sean Franklin says that he watched Transformers: Rise of Beasts. I hope he enjoyed it. Like I know I heard some mixed things about that one. I haven't seen it yet, so I probably need to get caught up on. I haven't seen Transformers 1 yet either, so I probably need to get caught up on those Transformers movies. Anyway, getting back to Two-Face's suit, if you know anything about comics, if you really know how comics worked in the old days, like back in the 1940s, they didn't have a whole wide color palette to choose from, and they were stuck with pretty much the same color palette. They didn't really innovate until like sometime in the late 1960s, early 1970s, when Neil Adams came in and he's like, hey, there's a bunch more colors that we can make with the 4 inks that we have. Why don't we try to do something different? And he actually invented a lot of colors that would be used in the Bronze Age and onward. But back in the 1940s, you only had so many colors to choose from, and it made sense to give him purple on its evil side, because that's generally the color of supervillains, especially if you look at the Batman comics at the time. Like, most of the villains wore purple. Joker wore purple. Penguin wore purple. Catwoman wore purple. So it made sense Two-Face would wear purple. So what did they give him on the other side that's going to stand as a contrast to purple? And they wound up going with orange, but I don't think that you're supposed to interpret it literally as orange. They color a lot of things orange if you look at Golden Age comics that probably shouldn't be considered orange, but we do anyway. Because I think people take it a little too literally. So I believe that Harvey is actually supposed to be wearing a much more conservative tan suit on his good side. And he's supposed to be wearing this wild and crazy purple plaid number on his left side. So I think that that's how it was intended to be interpreted. But nowadays we're spoiled in terms of comic book coloring, and we see it a bit more literally anytime we see something like this. So yeah, they give him a bright orange suit on the other side, even though, like I said, it should probably be a much more muted color than what it is. But technically it's accurate to the comic book. You see, it looks like how he's printed up in the comic book. I remember when they DC Direct did a line of Batman villains, and they did a Two-Face figure that was very much based off of Brian Bolland's art. I think all of these were supposed to be based off of Brian Bolland art, because I think they had Joker in the Hawaiian shirt, and they had a Two-Face that was based on a couple of different drawings of his, but I think the main one they were looking at was the Secret Origins special, and they had Hugo Strange, which was basically the same Killing Joke Batman figure from the 2-pack, only it had an alternate head, so you could switch it out for Hugo Strange. Always a good way to make Hugo Strange is just make a Batman figure with a swappable head, because you're sure to sell a Batman figure, right? Kind of like almost like what they did with He-Man and Faker in the cartoon collection recently. But I'm sorry, I'm so phlegmy today. I don't know what's up with me. But yeah, so that figure, that Brian Bolland figure, I remember that had a really bright, almost like fluorescent orange. If you think this is a loud and obnoxious orange, that one was even. It was kind of like the color on Beastman. Oops, knocked over He-Man. It's kind of like the color on Beastman, like that shade of orange, and it looked weird. And to be fair, like I said, that is accurate to how he was depicted on that cover when Brian Bolland drew him. But I don't know if he did the coloring himself. It doesn't seem like the way he'd color something, but he might have. I don't know. But on a comic book, like I said, you look at this, it doesn't look too odd. And I think it's because your brain is telling you that's tan. You don't realize it, but your brain's telling you that. Whereas you look at it in 3 dimensions and off of a comic book page, and now your brain is telling you it's orange. So I suspect that that's what's up with that. So I don't know for certain. I'm not like a neuroscientist. I don't know for a fact that that's the case, but I suspect that that's the case. That's my theory. I can't prove it, but it's only a theory that happens to fit the facts. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about Harvey's articulation. So Two-Face can look up about that far, look down about that far, tilt his head kind of quizzically from side to side, rotate the head all the way around. Of course, the arms rotate all the way around his shoulders. He's got a suit jacket, which I popped his arm out of his torso. You can see it sits on kind of like a ball joint there. It should pop right back in. But since I got it off, that does kind of show very definitively there's no butterfly joint whatsoever in this guy. So let's try to pop his arm back into its socket, and then we can continue with the articulation. Now I'm going to be a little more careful this time because I don't want to have to pop it back in. So his arms raise up to the sides about that far. He does have a bicep swivel. The bicep rotates all the way around. He's got double jointed elbows. That's about the range of motion you get at the elbows. He's got the excellent Mcfarlane wrist articulation, which rotates where the wrist meets the articulation and where the articulation meets the forearm, where the wrist meets the hand and where the hand meets the forearm. So you can move that around really any which way you want to. He has a gripping hand on this hand with a trigger finger, so you can scrounge up a gun. He can hold a gun. Get one from your G.I. Joe collection somewhere. I might have a G.I. Joe pistol around here somewhere. because I know I've got some GI Joe accessories right here in front of me. But it doesn't look like I have any pistols. Most of those have holsters for them. So we do have a rifle. We can go ahead and see what it looks like holding a rifle. See, he can hold a gun nicely if you give him one. And of course, Mcfarlane towards the end of the line. In the last year of the line, we're finally getting guns on some of these characters. So Two-Face, I guess, came out just a little bit too early to come with a gun, unfortunately. So he does have some torso articulation. Of course, you can see the waist rotates all the way around, and he can get some sideways motion out of that. I don't know what kind of articulation is under this jacket, but it seems like there's like just a solid torso. I don't think there's any kind of. There might be an ab. There is an ab crunch. How about that? That's surprising. I was not expecting that. I don't think it's an ab crunch that can be used at all, but I can feel the joint through the jacket. So that's interesting. Two-Face can kick up about that far. Of course, his leg is somewhat encumbered by this jacket, but that's to be expected. It's a very pliable, soft rubber jacket, but it can only move so far. He's got that little bit of wobble like Mcfarlane's tend to have, but not a whole lot of articulation there. It seems like even less than usual. It might not even be intended to move. It might just be, I'm just moving it on the joint as much as possible. Double jointed knees. That's about the range of motion you get at the knees. And he's got the cool Mcfarlane ankle articulation, but it's going to be somewhat hindered again by the pants leg. Foot can point up about that far, point down about that far. Not the best range of motion as far as that goes, but with the pants leg like that, that's to be expected. And then he has toe articulation just to show off. Let's get one more shot of our two Harveys together. Tommy Lee Jones from the live action Batman Forever movie and our comic book version of Two-Face, both of which look excellent, both of which I think managed to capture the flavor of each respective version of Harvey Dent. Great job on that. Since we're talking about Batman Forever, and since I always have the Riddler handy, we can see the two villains of Batman Forever in their comic book form. So if they'd have made the costumes a little more accurate to the comics, that's what we would have wound up. That's not a slam on the costumes in Batman Forever. I actually think they did a good job with the costumes in Batman Forever. And I know some of you are complaining about nipples even as I speak, but that was still a pretty decent bat suit. I still think it's still one of my favorite bat suits. Whether or not it has nipples, I don't really care. So it never really bothered me that much. So that's pretty much it for Two-Face. He's a pretty great figure, but I think that he could have been a really great figure if they'd have decided to include some accessories for Harvey. Like, I really think that, even if they couldn't give him a gun, which would have been nice, it would have been really cool to see some extra hands on there. It would have been really nice to have this coin flip hand for this Two-Face figure. I think that would have been a really cool thing to have. But he does have the I don't think I've pointed this out before. He does have the coin in the hand, and that is nice. And it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of detail to it. I don't guess there is a whole lot of detail you can fit into something like that. You can see that the coin has two heads, but I can't really tell which one is supposed to be the scarred side and which side is supposed to be the clean side. So I'm going to assume, since this one definitely looks like the clean side on this half, this side that we can't see all of it is the scarred side. So one of my favorite Batman villains, and probably one of the most popular Batman villains. I would say he would probably fit into your top 5 if you had to name off Batman villains. But of course, Batman's got so many villains, you could be forgiven if he didn't make it into your top 5. It'd be appropriate if he was my second favorite Batman villain, but that part is taken up by Ra's al Ghul. I think you know who the number 1 would be. I kind of almost feel like at this point it's you just ask somebody who their second favorite Batman villain is, because 90% of people are going to say the Joker is the number 1. So, but yeah, that's it for Two-Face. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure that you like, subscribe, all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment and let me know what you think about Two-Face, both this figure and the character in general. I'm going to be back on the next episode, which might be Monday, but I don't know yet because my schedule is going to be kind of weird this week. But the next episode, I think I'm going to open up this guy, just Connor Hawk, the Green Arrow of the 1990s. This is Green Arrow Connor Hawk. And there's the artwork on the back. This is a Target exclusive. I just picked him up recently. He came out around the same time as Our Man. But like what happened with Orion, I prioritized the other figure over this one. So like with how I thought that it was more important for me to get Wildcat than Orion. So I got Wildcat first and picked up Orion later. This time I got Our Man first and picked up Connor Hawk later. You know, obviously I got a fondness for the Justice Society characters, so those are the ones usually take priority. Oh, that reminds me, I do have that Orion figure I still need to open up, so I'll probably do him sometime next week too and get him out of the way. So if you want to make sure you don't miss that, like, subscribe, hit the little bell, all that fun stuff. Thanks for watching. We will talk to you next time. Bye.